Hello again. I'm Leslie Willcocks, and this is Ideas in Action, a series looking at how digital technologies can be effectively managed. The next 5 videos look at whether there's going to be a backlash against technology. It also looks at automation anxiety, what caused it, what we can learn from looking at automation anxiety through 5 years of computing, whether there is such a thing as an unprecedented digital future. We hear a lot about that. And finally, we critique the overhyped Gartner hype cycle. So there's quite a lot to get through. And today, our way into it is really an April 2025 headline that suggested that US major Starbucks is going to cut back on automation. An interesting headline. Starbucks has announced it was pulling back on its Siren system rollout, begun in 2022 and designed to streamline drink making and labor costs against lower than expected sales and shrinking profit margins. The recently appointed CEO, Brian Niccol, would reverse replacing labor with machines and, despite additional costs, bring back quickly more baristas into its 3,000 US stores. That's going to cost quite a lot of money, as you can imagine. So it's a brave decision. Well, headlines can be misleading, to say the least. For example, far from being a naive user of digital technologies, Starbucks has been a pioneer and in a digital transformation journey of some 8 years so far, deploys multiple suites of systems very successfully. However, there have been problems. In the very competitive drinks and food service sector, many customers had become more cautious financially. Some reported the feel at Starbucks had become more transactional and less about the customer experience. While for others, Starbucks' recent labor strife detracted from employee satisfaction, but also more broadly what the brand stood for. Starbucks also operate in cafe, mobile order, and drive-through options, and there are challenges customizing technology for all three channels. Mobile ordering and drive-through have been seen as solutions to slumping sales, but mobile ordering has led to overcrowding and queues in cafes, and drive-through a greater focus on economy and speed at the expense of customer engagement. Where then does technology figure in all this? Major technological investments have to function in a system of work that attempts to align and optimize strategy, management attitudes, processes, people, culture, legacy data, and technologies and organization structure. In such settings, we consistently find that roughly 70% of the challenges are in fact managerial and organizational, and only 30% to do with the technology. Technology can surely help. As a small example, CEO Niccol observes that the mobile ordering algorithm needs to be adjusted to reduce the overqueuing in cafe environments. Too often, technology is designed from an internal efficiency rather than a customer experience perspective. Starbucks is now setting about adjusting their own imbalances on this. All this sort of rings bells for me. Over the years, we have identified lasting management principles that need to be applied to turbulent technology. And the Starbucks case suggests 6 major ones that they might need to apply. Let's have a look at these. The first one is competing on service with technology. In service industries, what competes is what differentiates at the point of customer experience. Put bluntly, service quality matters. In the well-known ServQual model, the best predictions of customer delight are doing well on 5 dimensions: tangibles, reliability, responsiveness, assurance, and empathy. On tangibles, one factor is that many customers think the coffee price is too high for the service and ambience they experience. Starbucks' responses seem to be focusing on enhancing the experience rather than reducing the price. Will this work? Tangibles include the taste of the coffee, which according to Neapolitan coffee law is dependent on the four M's, Miscela, Macina, Cafe, Macina, and Mano, which we will translate as mix, coffee, grinder, coffee machine, and barista, i.e. machines are only 50% of the story. Automation can do quite a lot on reliability and speed up processes, but it is the staff that gives you assurance and empathy. Customers also experience the cafe environments as more stripped down and not like pre-COVID, something that Starbucks is now remedying. Second point, the amplifier effect of technology. Our research has consistently found over many years that a good management is made better, often much better, by technology, but a poor management much worse. If you apply technology to a work system that has poor components or is not properly aligned, you're more likely to get what we call disaster faster. At Starbucks, it may be that the complexity of the drink's products, innovation, and work requirements of staff mean that the technology was being applied prematurely to a work system that first needed more simplification. Without this, perhaps Starbucks eroded some of its points of difference in the customer experience. Third, management visions matter. Digital technology can be used for a variety of purposes. Most typically, we have come across four executive visions. The first one is to automate, mainly to displace labor and achieve efficiency. The second, to informate up, to allow senior management to control and micromanage. Thirdly, it's to informate down, to give more information to and empower those working in lower parts of the organization, including in customer-facing roles. And fourthly, the vision is to transform the organization and its relationships with customers, suppliers, competitors, and complementers. In 2025, Starbucks would seem to have several visions operating, but we're leaning too much on the automation and information up visions with a number of important technology applications. Next, there's the technology navigation dilemma. I've talked about this before. Computing and digital technologies have always been massively hyped. This seems to have only peaked these days with AI. More of that in another blog. A tool we have deployed for many years to help executives find their way suggests that there are four high-tech domains to navigate. The first one is technology hype. This is the domain and agenda of technology vendors, management consultants, and the media. The second one is technology capability. This is the domain of technologists and those selling hardware, software, and application. Too often it turns out that the technology is a solution looking for a business problem it can solve. A lot of recent AI is probably at that stage as at June 2025. Thirdly, there is useful technology. This is an even more dangerous domain because even a child of 6 years of age can make a persuasive case for more technology. Think what happens in a large business enterprise dealing in millions of dollars where powerful people can make claims for resources and organizational politics is alive and well. Finally, there is strategic technology. That is the relatively few technology systems, applications that will make a disproportionate contribution to business value and strategic direction. Of the four agendas, the fourth, the strategic one, should be the one adopted as the business agenda as opposed to the hype, capability, and user agendas. In Starbucks' case, I suspect the Serene system was identified as strategic across the business, but now a more limited role has been correctly identified. The next managerial point I would make is the implementation challenge. Again, I've talked about this at length in the past, but unfortunately, a technology is rarely a silver bullet or a fire and forget missile. To achieve business value, they have to be designed, developed, trialed, adopted, then institutionalized, meeting many challenges and with many adjustments being made on the long road to effectiveness. It can take years to bed a technology down to achieve its optimal business value. In competitive environments, the less useful ones get abandoned along the way. In the Starbucks case, the Siren system has been implemented in about 10% of US outlets, and the plan had become to install the system only in very target stores, such as those with high drive-through customer volumes and overall sales. Finally, we have the digital leadership quest. Depending on sector, between 15 and 23% of medium to large organizations will be digital high performers. Our most recent research shows that another 25% will be followers, 35% laggards, and another 20% will be nascent digital organizations. Starbucks in the food and drink sector is probably a digital leader. This requires being very good at 7 core capabilities, which we have talked about in a previous blog. What is interesting about those capabilities, by the way, is that of them, technology forms really only one core capability. So, by way of summary, an interesting question is, how long can a business like Starbucks maintain such a digital leadership position? Shaping advanced technologies for competitive advantage is a key area that they have to focus on. But as in the case of Starbucks, technology is not the all-consuming answer or disaster that headlines too often like to suggest. In a customer service business, the small details are a point of difference. The customer experience is paramount, and it is these and the Starbucks CEO's determination to reintroduce what the brand is supposed to stand for that the technology will need to underpin. That's all for now. See you next time.